Now, if Mill were here, he would have something to say in response, I think. On page 19 of the utilitarian book, he writes of a case that's not too radically different from the kinds of cases we've been discussing thus far. He writes, "It would be unworthy of an intelligent agent not to be consciously aware that the action being considered here is of a class which, if practiced generally, would be generally injurious, and that this is the ground of the obligation to abstain from it." What he's saying, I think, is that the idea of euthanizing someone in order to save somebody else's life, especially if euthanizing the person would be involuntary, that kind of act would be one which, if practiced generally, would be very injurious to society as a whole, because then we'd have squads going around saying, ah, there's somebody who's fairly infirm or not very productive. We'd better see whether she's got a heart that we could use to save this very intelligent person over here who has a need of a heart transplant. And oh, there's somebody who is dying of cancer. She's got a year to live perhaps, but she's got skin. Let's harvest her skin now while it's still good for someone who just got injured in a fire, and let this person who's got a year of her life, let that year be shortened, etc. That would cause chaos and a great deal of anxiety in society if each of us knew that at any given time our number might be up because the utilitarian calculus might require that we be sacrificed for the greater good. That seems to be what Mill has in mind. And in light of that kind of thought, more recent philosophers have suggested that perhaps we could distinguish between two kinds of utilitarianism. Let's call them act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism. Act utilitarianism is just what we've seen before. Perform that act from those available, most likely to produce the greatest overall amount of utility. Rule utilitarianism is a little bit different, though, and more sophisticated. It says, perform that act from those available that accords with a rule that is itself part of a system of rules, the general following of which would produce the greatest overall amount of utility. That's more of a mouthful, but it's more sophisticated, more subtle, more carefully formulated to make references to the idea that the utilitarian wants to put in place rules that seem to have to be very firm, and they might say things like, tell the truth, or keep your promises, or don't take somebody's life against their will, etc. The whole system of rules are ones the following of which would be something that would produce the greatest overall amount of utility. So here's some examples of utilitarian rules, some of which we've seen before. Keep your promises. Tell the truth. Punish the wicked and only the wicked. To err is human, to forgive divine. That is, forgive people who've done things, nobody's perfect. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, the golden rule. Two wrongs don't make a right. That is, let's get beyond the Hammurabi Code, for example. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. We've seen that one before. And to thine own self be true, another familiar one. You might say these are a set of utilitarian rules that are plausibly part of a system of rules, the general following of which would be felicific, that is, maximize overall well-being for society. So if that's right, then Mill might come back with our example of the Arctic explorers and Dr. Jones and Rufus and say, not so fast. On the rule utilitarian system of utilitarianism, these are both behaviors, breaking your promises, for example, and euthanizing someone who's innocent, are ones that would violate plausible utilitarian rules, and that's why, in good conscience as utilitarian, Mill would say, that's why I'm allowed to call these things wrong.